Women who dated older men as teenagers that now realize they were predators. What's your story? I had sex with a 28-year-old when I was 13 and thought it was perfectly normal. He always complimented me, bought me stuff, and drove me places when I needed a ride. Looking back now, I can't believe I didn't realize how fucked up that was. To this day he can't find someone to date that's his age. I'm 24 now, from what I heard from rumors. My first boyfriend, I was barely 15. He was 21, worked in a local shop, and all the girls at my school liked him, so came as a bit of a surprise when the biggest dork ever, me, somehow landed him and not any of the popular girls. We dated for maybe 4 months. Turned out he was sleeping with 3 girls in my year, which I found confusing because I begged him to take my virginity to no avail. Always found that really weird and insulting that he never even wanted to sleep with me. Plot twist. My mum had stormed into the shop when we first started dating and told him, "Si, if you take my daughter's virginity, I will kill you with my bare hands." God bless my mum. I was 15 and definitely didn't understand a thing about love or danger. I found out that he was married and had a child because he literally disappeared, and I was trying to find out what happened. I was 13 with a 22-year-old otter boyfriend. He made me feel special, grown up. My friends were all jealous. TBH, he was hot. A predator but a solid 10/10. We met on Xbox Live. Those were the days, and started a relationship. I was in my ugly duckling phase, so was drawn into it by the attention. No boys my own age seemed interested in me. I was bullied a bit and it was nice for a good looking older boy to think I was pretty. He slowly pressured me into sex. Started with pushing me into sexual acts on webcam, to oral, then full sex. He always insisted on filming everything because I loved me so much he wanted to only use our videos as porn. What I wasn't aware of was the fact he was showing all his friends and they made bets on how quickly he could get me to do something else. Whenever I pushed back, he always said, if I wanted to date a man I needed to act like a woman, otherwise he would find a girl more willing to have a proper relationship with him. He then tried to pressure me into sleeping with his friends. Started with a threesome, him included. Then one night he asked me to just sleep with his friend. I saw his friend give him money, which is when I realized this whole thing was a lie, and left. He texted that he was standing outside my middle school waiting for me. I broke out in a cold sweat and I knew I had made a massive mistake. He was my guidance counselor. I didn't realize how creepy he was until he proposed. The whole thing was ducked. I was 11 and he was 23. We didn't date. He had a girlfriend, but he would text me and send me nudes. Eventually I realized it was strange and blocked him. Didn't tell anyone about it. I sometimes wonder if it's impacted me more than I would care to admit. Does it count if I was 19? X was 33 when we met. We were together for 7.5 years. I came from an abusive home, so this older, more mature man seemed so interesting and wanted to take care of me, so I was all about it. I should also mention that I look very young for my age. I regularly get mistaken as being as young as 14. I am 27 now. He was into Aja play, so in bed he was always wanting me to act like I was like an 8-year-old girl and he was my dad or older brother. Yeah. He turned out to be a pedo and has tons of CP on his computer, cell phone, and laptop. I tried going online and reporting him anonymously, but nothing ever came of it. I don't really want to go report in person because I'm scared no one will believe me because I'm his ex. And I don't want to get dragged into a court case or anything. I met a dude on Adult Swim's forums back when I was around 12. He was 24 and was nice to me. Things always seemed hinky to me even from the beginning. But I had no friends in real life and was definitely in an ugly duckling place. So I figured that if this is who is going to pay attention to me, so be it. He would tell me the things he wanted to do to me and eventually sent me a hideously low-res picture of his D, and all I remember is trying to laugh it off and said I thought he sent me a picture of a sock ass. Eventually, he started asking that if we met in person if he could tie me up and take nudes of me. He started talking about buying a plane ticket to visit me and for my address, and I guess I finally had a bad enough gut feeling and didn't go through with it. My family eventually found out about us talking and it was a huge deal. I was rightfully banned from the internet for a while. Not that it mattered much, because I wound up meeting another awful dude older than me. but this one was locally grown lol. I'll put it my experience in here while I'm at it. I was 14. He was 21 and I thought it was cool that he had a car and could buy alcohol. Luckily I didn't interact with this person for more than a few months. I'm 18. He is 31. I was supposed to meet him tomorrow. My country has finished quarantine. I told him I didn't feel comfortable sleeping with him or even hooking up in any way. He pressed me on it further and I admitted I was on my period and was uncomfortable. He told me that he didn't want to be around anybody who put up any barriers. He didn't want me to feel comfortable setting boundaries. Blocked his ass real fast. I'll be honest. The high-tech chameleon suit was an indicator. The shoulder-mounted laser tracking plasma gun was another. I think what finally tipped me off was the weird mouth. Loved the dreadlocks though. I'm from a third world country where it is normal for 15-16-year-old girls to date guys in their early to late 20s. Especially in the 90s when chat rooms became available thanks to the internet. At 13-14 years old with my girlfriends we would meet up with 18-19-year-old boys, which now I know it was not a good idea, but I didn't know any better back then. Until I moved to a different country where I learned that there were strict laws in place for adults dating and having sex with teenagers. I was too stupid to understand why my mom was so upset when at 14 I had a date and got picked up in a car by a 24-year-old who bought me ice cream at MC Donald's, but luckily he was very nice and took me home after. Can't say I wasn't pressured into doing sexual stuff at very young age by much older men, but unfortunately that was the norm. My best friend in high school dated a teacher and the school found out somehow. I don't know if she thinks of it like this though. I for sure do. When I was 17 I was befriended by a guy almost 17 years older than me. We were friends for 2 years and he pursued me relentlessly. I never fancied him, but we did become really close and I cared a lot about him. I had a really hard time when I was younger and tried to commit suicide at 17, so when he promised me unconditional love, which I had never had, and showed me all this attention, he eventually wore me down. He made a move when I was 19 and I didn't say no. We were together for 2.5 years. I can't say he was a predator exactly, but when I reached my late 30s the thought of being with a teenager actually made me want to vomit. A change of perspective was a real eye-opener, as I had always explained that I was more mature than he was, so the age gap didn't seem that big. But when you're 17 your opinion of time is so different to 20 years later. As a father, the comments scare the shit out of me. Well everyone, it's been swell. I'm off to hug my daughters. I almost wrote hug my kids, then reflected on my word choices. I was 15 with a 21-year-old. He hung around youth group and made all us younger girls feel special with his attention. I was shy and quiet, didn't stand out much, but obviously wanted the special attention that all the prettier, peppier girls got. He wasn't interested until he found out my mom worked nights and I was home alone. We ended up getting into a pretty heated argument and split when, 2 weeks in, I still hadn't let him come over because I was terrified of what my mom would do if she knew I'd had anyone over while she was gone. I know a 14-year-old girl who ducked her pot dealer for weed. I know a 13-year-old who was dating a 45-year-old. Oh boy, did that guy get the it kicked out of him over it. It never really was an issue here because everyone grew up with that mentality that goofs deserve nothing more than a bullet in between the eyes, and when all the teenage girls hear that coming from boys, it tends to make them think. I was 18, he was 34. Sounds really bad when said like that, but it didn't to me since my dad is also 16 years older than my mum and they were a very happy couple for 15 years. I met him via my older sister. Only through the internet at first because he lived in the US and I lived in France. Of course I was madly in love. Of course he made me think he was too and that he never felt that for anyone else and all the other bullet you easily fall for when you're 18. After a few months I went to visit him alone for 2 weeks. It went well, but something was weird. I really couldn't be myself and he was always criticizing me about being too shy, for example. And even if he took 2 weeks off work we didn't really do anything special like visiting the city, even though I've crossed half the globe to see him. It's when I went back home that I really realized what he was, a pervert and a loser. When I was back in France he sent me a video that he filmed of us having sex. Of course I wasn't aware of being filmed, and to this day I have no idea if he kept the video to himself or not. It's been a few years now, I don't know what he's doing now. I still get a message every year that I always ignore. It honestly never clicked for me until I was much older myself. I just thought I was super mature, and that's why it wasn't weird that I was 14 with a 19-year-old boyfriend. It was a super toxic relationship. He cheated on me, stole from me, lied to me and lied about me so much. He pretty much only came around when he wanted sex and would tell me whatever he thought I needed to hear to keep stringing me along. In my vet registered sign. I thought this was just how grown-up relationships were, so I stayed. Until I finally got fed up at 18 years old. Isn't it funny that when I was finally old enough to date him, I no longer wanted to? I thought I was cooler than the other girls in my grade because my boyfriend was a man. Looking back, I'm sure I was an easy lay as I didn't require much from him in return like people his own age might have. And as I got older, I wondered if he ever felt odd having sex with someone who was so clearly a child. I also wondered how none of his friends, they all knew my real age, thought it was weird or called him out on it. I think that's the system they speak of when they say this kind of behavior takes a village of people who were not willing to protect the child. The irony of it all is that karma has blessed him with 3 daughters, and I'm sure he's had the scary thought, more than once, that another him will come along and treat his girls the way he treated me. I was 14 and dated a 25-year-old cop. He never asked my age and I never told. One day we're chatting on phone and I told him that I got some homework to do and I'll call back later. He said, fresher year of college getting to ya, huh? I said, college? I'm in high school. Dead silence. Then he asked how old I was and I said 14. He freaked out and was saying I'm gonna go to jail for this and I'm gonna lose my job. He said I can't see you again and please don't tell anyone. I said yeah, of course. I got why he was scared and I never saw him again and never told. My mother found older boys to introduce me to when I was 15-16. She would take me to coffee shops or sneak me into bars and charm her way with men in their 20s only to introduce them to me. I would date them, and she would get chores done around the house that she needed. Painted kitchen, fixed cabinets, roof work, stuff like that. I remember my best friend's mom trying to warn me and explain to me why it was wrong of my mother to let her 15-year-old date 25-year-olds. But I just thought I was really cool. It wasn't until one of them found me online and reached out a few years ago that I realized what she'd actually been doing all that time. And of course, none of these guys knew what the duck they were doing, so the house looked like it anyways. They were a group of internet friends all ranging from 25 to 30 while I was 14-15. One of them attempted to abuse me, and the others kind of ganged up on me to explain that he was so sad because he'd been dumped. And I was so mature so it was okay. And couldn't I just let him tap that to be nice? My parents also encouraged the situation. They pushed me into the arms of these men when I was barely into high school and pushed me to visit their apartments alone. I think they wanted something to happen to teach the lesbian a lesson or maybe correct my lesbianism. A few years later at 18 another one of them stalked. He moved in my building to be able to stalk me easier and tried to pressure me into sex for a full year until it culminated into him trying to abuse me too. Never talked to them ever again. Honestly, I felt more betrayed by the lone woman and the group, who could have saved me, but just very happily participated in and even encouraged my grooming. The other were just the usual rapist men, but this woman, I'll never forget her. I had just turned 18. He was 26. He flew across half the world to see me. I didn't want him to. Guilted me into being with him. When I told my mum I felt uncomfortable being pressured, she too guilted me about him coming so far for me. Overall super ducked up. But the most disturbing thing is how pressed he was on getting married. This man really wanted us to tie the knot, have babies, straight away. I had to remind him I hadn't even finished high school yet. That didn't bother him the slightest bit. He was dead set on us getting married, moving to his country and having a family ASAP. Looking back, I can see that what he really wanted was to completely isolate me from everything and everyone I know. Worth mentioning, he was somewhat racist towards my people and wasn't big on the idea of coming back to my country, and sealed the deal of me being 100% dependent on him by bringing some babies into the picture. And you know what? It felt so much like everyone felt that's what I should do, that I nearly went through with it. I shudder at the thought of what could have been. I was 16. A school teacher of 30 years used to touch me and text me stuff. I didn't really realize it was bad until some years later when he married a girl from my class. I didn't tell anyone because I was scared that people would think that it was my fault. No as extreme as some of these stories, but I was 15 and he was 19 when we first got involved. We didn't have a sex until I was 16. I never was in an actual relationship with him, kind of a FWB-ish thing. I wised up when he tried to pull off the condom without me noticing and never fooled around with him after that. But we remained friends for a while after that. By the time I was a senior in high school I could confidently look back and say he was lame and there was a reason girls his age weren't interested. But it wasn't until about a year ago, I'm 30 now, that I came to the realization he wasn't just a loser but a creep. Does it count if it's online? If so, when I was 8-9 I dated an 18-year-old, and when I was 10 I dated a 17-year-old. Luckily we never sent any pictures to each other, but it unfortunately led to me lying about my whole life online for 7 years. I stopped last August and owned up to all my online friends. I once worked for a government agency. A surprising number of the women had dated and had relationships with adult men as teenagers. The women were candid, the men had cars and money to spend on them, and they liked that. That does not make it any less wrong. My mom was 17 and my dad was 26 when they got married. They were divorced before I was 2, and it was a bad marriage. My dad loved his sugar and beer, and my mom loved, well, his best friend. Probably gonna be buried. But this isn't me, but my little sister, who made the mistake of linking all her social media to her phone number, and constantly gets D-pics and sexual messages from creepy old people. She is going to be 14 in August. I was 14, he was 24. So much wrong with that picture. I was 6 and 8 on the internet. Not even a girl anymore, so I hope all the guys that preyed on me know they are gay now. I was 16. He was 25. He was the son of the owner of the restaurant I worked at in the summer. We dated for 6 months. I thought he was cool. He had a really nice Jeep, drank fancy whiskey, listened to vinyl, and read the same weird old books as me. He thought I was fun and easy to hang out with. I didn't have expectations about a long-term relationship. Neither of us really pursued each other. We just worked late nights together for a few months and things sort of just happened. He should have known better. He should have flat out turned me down. But he didn't. The restaurant industry is always full of questionable relationships. Looking back, I guess it was wrong on his part. But I also can't say I have any negative feelings towards him. He never pushed me to do anything. We never slept together. He was always incredibly kind to me. That said, looking back on it, his behavior is pretty gross. While he let me lead, and didn't pressure me, if I suggested something, he never would have said no. I think he knew he had crossed a line and was just trying to see how far I'd push my own boundaries. I was 17. He was 30. We worked together. He had a wife and 2 kids and I stupidly believed he would leave his wife for me because he complained about her constantly. I should have told his wife because he ended up parading his little family around in front of me when we had a company picnic, and then afterwards had the audacity to text me to meet him in the employee lounge to fool around. For being a dumb kid, I at least had the sense to know that he was a shitty person after that little charade, and I let him sit there waiting for me for nearly an hour. I should have told his wife. I still think about it and I'm disgusted with myself and with him. Not a woman, but when I was under 18, I think I was 16, I joined a guild on WoW and the guild leader groomed and pressured me into sending him nudes and being naked on webcam. When his GF found out, she told the entire guild that I was a home wrecker. I really thought the guy cared about me, but he joined in and said I was desperate, and it was sad that I was so into him. He blocked me and ruined my reputation on that server. He was in the army and I think 28. Pretty sure those pictures got passed around, and it is absolutely vile that these 30+ grown adult men were distributing child porn of me and laughing about it. I blamed myself for the longest time, but telling my story to horrified faces kinda made me realize how fucked up it was. I don't know why. I don't remember watching anything. or being around anyone that would influence me to do this, but I used to, at the age of 12-14, send nude pictures of myself to older men. I would go on chat sites and offer up these pictures of myself. I never met up with any of the people I sent pictures to, and I still, to this day, don't know why I did it. To this day I think about older men taking advantage of me, and I don't know why I always go to that place. I don't think I was abused. If I was, I don't remember it. I was 17 and having a relationship with my 45-year-old teacher whilst I was in school. My dad was dying of terminal cancer and I needed someone to lean on. The police found out, but I didn't want to disclose any details. Watching my dad die was enough trauma, let alone having a full-on police investigation. He is no longer allowed to teach, but never was prosecuted. I tried to go for counseling, but they said they would have to inform the police of whatever I said. So I've been trying to deal with it by myself. He hit me and sent me death threats and I never reported him. Not a woman but was born in a female body, so good enough I guess. Looking back, I had serious parental issues and desperately wanted some kind of guidance, so I looked to the internet. I met a lot of great people in chat rooms who didn't want to prey on a 12-year-old, so I became too comfortable and dropped my guard completely. I had a series of relationships with much older men in their 20s who wanted nudes and sexting. I was dying for attention, being born ugly and all that, so I gave up so much of myself. They would always tell me that it was our secret, that I was beautiful and so mature for my age, and other bullshit like that. I knew it was wrong. I wasn't stupid, but I was lonely. If any young kids are reading these posts, please be safe out there. The people who promise the world in exchange for pictures of your body are monsters that deserve to be locked up and tortured. Get out while you can.